So in this video, I want to sit here and discuss a little bit about men versus women dating and relationships and marriage in the modern age with the idea of feminism and equality and expectations that we have from each other. I think one of our biggest problems in our world today is probably expectations. And by this, I mean that we expect certain things from our significant other. And I can't say that this is wrong. It's not wrong to have expectations, but sometimes when those expectations fall short, we get disappointed about how they fall short. And I don't know if this is good or bad because I watch a lot of these videos and everyone wants to say something different. And here's the thing about it. None of them are wrong. No one's wrong in what you expect in a relationship. We try to sit here and say, well, this is when things are wrong. I just watched a video. This is what inspired me to say this. I watched a video about this man who was sitting here proposing that the reason relationships fail is because men are basically grown children that want a mother, and women are taking up a more masculine role, having to take care of things, plan things out, do everything. And in some relationships, that is the case. That does end up being the problem for a lot of these. But the point he was trying to make there was that men need to be men and women need to be women. You can't have a good, stable relationship without those clearly defined roles. And this is where I have the problem. Not that I have a problem with a relationship with clearly defined roles. That's perfectly fine. I have no issue with that. That's, people do whatever it is they want to do. My issue comes in the fact that that doesn't have to be the case for everyone. I was reading through the comments of this same video, and this video was on Facebook, so I wasn't able to pull it or show it or anything. I intend to start doing videos where I'm scrolling through Facebook and we stop on the video and watch it, and then I do a reaction video for it. But that wasn't this. This is just me having to restate it and retell it. But he was sitting there saying all this because he wanted to show how equality and feminism was destroying relationships. That's basically the point he was trying to get to with this. Women need to be women need to be taken care of, men need to be more masculine, and he's not wrong when he says men need to be more masculine. That's what men are for. But not all men are going to be masculine. Not all men are going to want to do that. Not all men are, and not all women want their man to do that, which I feel is kind of the key factor in this, is the fact that women want different things. You can't sit there and say this one thing for all women. It's a difficult position because a lot of these guys just come out looking kind of Cro-Magnon about their whole opinions and ideas, but there's something to it. I'm not saying it's for everyone, but it is for some people. A big problem that we have with this is that when people sit there and talk like this, they're talking like they remember the 1930s and 50s nostalgically, when men were really men, when women knew their place and that kind of thing. But we forget during those time periods the problems with men and women from those time periods, how women were stuck in a relationship. This man said that in the Western world, men are happier in a relationship and women are happier being single. Statistically speaking, this is shown to be true. I don't know if the conclusions he drew from that were quite accurate, but it is a statistical fact. Women are found to be happier single than men are being single. Women are happier to be single than men are, which goes very contrary to what we think traditionally about men and women. We think all women want to have the marriage and men don't. At the same time, we're also seeing in society today where men tend to be single far more frequently, especially at younger ages, than women do. Now, when you sit there and you think that statistically men and women are about equal in regards to ratio, there's about 50% of the population is men, 50% of the population is women, how is that even a statistical possibility? How are men able to be single and women not? And there's a couple of different answers here. One of the answers I was expecting was that a man might be seeing multiple different women, but it turns out the biggest response that I've seen on this is that women date older men. Younger women date older men. Of course, older men date younger women. This isn't to say that older women don't date younger men, or either the other way around, but more frequently we see that. Well, one, because it's more accepted in society, even though it's still very much frowned upon. It's just something that we see more in our media and our television shows, a younger woman with an older guy. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with it. I'm saying that this is how it explains that younger men tend to be more single than younger women. When you start getting to the older areas, I'm not sure what the statistics are there because none of the social media I watch has been addressing that. And I could address it, but for the purposes of this video, I just wanted to make something where I'm just sitting here kind of rambling on, spouting off on some ideas, as people on YouTube and everywhere else seem to do, so that I can get some kind of backlash. Fortunately, I have no viewers, so I don't have to worry about backlash. Yay. There's always a silver lining. But there is no right or wrong answer here. If you want a masculine man, look for a masculine man. If you want a less masculine man, someone a little more feminine, someone maybe a little more in touch with their emotions, their feminine side. But we have to be able to understand that just because you want to be a masculine man or because you want a masculine man, we have to think about what it is women want there, because it's not like women were happy in the 1930s and 50s when men were men and women were women. Women were forced into that kind of situation because they weren't allowed to have jobs. They weren't allowed to have bank accounts. They weren't allowed to have money, essentially. They weren't allowed to take care of themselves for the majority of the situation. Divorce was a lot harder to attain. When you got married, you were more devoted to that, either due to peer pressure or just the way society was at the time, the fact that you couldn't go anywhere or do anything. So there was a lot of negative pressure to stay in that relationship in the 1930s and 50s. It doesn't mean that women were happier in that kind of situation. So we can't sit there and say, just because women aren't in relationships like they had been or aren't as happy in relationships like they had been, that that is a good indication that men were better back then. Men were also a lot more abusive, a lot more cruel to their partners during that time period. So in an ideal situation, what you want is to remove the toxic masculinity, which, to be clear, not all masculinity is toxic. I tend to hear this more from men than I do from women, that, oh, masculinity is considered toxic. No, that's not what anyone is saying. We're saying that there is a difference between toxic masculinity and non-toxic masculinity. Toxic masculinity is overpowering, taking control of the situation, where a person may actually just want mutual respect, trust, and understanding. And that's what they're looking for. Treating someone like an equal is not the opposite of masculinity. You can be masculine and still be respectful. And it's when you're not respectful, when you are practically abusive in the way that you treat the other person, that's a toxic masculinity. When you make a person feel like less than they are. And this was very common in the 30s, 40s, 50s. Men would regularly make their women belittle them. I mean, we saw it on the television shows at the time. It was such a common trend that it was just the way it was. And we have to be wary of these television shows, because some of them end up showing toxic masculinity in a positive light. But sometimes a woman does want a man to take control, to run things, to make plans. She doesn't want to be the person that has to do everything. And in an equal relationship, she shouldn't be. And for most people, that is what they're looking for, is an equal relationship, not the one where one person is having to take care of everything, regardless of whether it's the household, the bills, planning vacations, trips. Everything wants a mutual understanding and mutual benefit to each other. I don't know. I feel like this is probably why I need a script and to actually write these things out before I turn on a camera. Could have had more direction to this thing. I know that there's a lot of points that I'm not making here right now. I'll probably do another video like this sometime soon that will hopefully address some of these points. We'll see.